We're going to start by designing a character in Photoshop, just a really rough one, and I'll kind of go through the steps that I would take to make a character. Everybody's got their own ways of doing things, so adjust as needed or as you feel that it works for your kind of workflow and all that. But I'm going to assume you guys have a fairly familiar understanding of Photoshop. So if there is something that I'm going over that you don't get, just please let me know in class, and I will go over it. So first thing I do is I just start a new project. Let me just do. I usually do like an HG one, 1920 by 1080. You don't have to go that big, but I like to work with a big paper. I hit F to go full screen, go to 100%. Have a nice. I just want a lot of space to work with. So I'm going to get my brush here. I'm actually going to select a black color. The brush I really like to use, if you go to your brush tools here, if you don't have this little tool, you can go to Windows and brush presets to activate that. So what I like to do, the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of get a general idea of the character that I want. And you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, but I'm gonna start with big scale, big scope. I really don't like to go down to the details until I really have to. And the theory that I'm going to talk about of starting big and then working your way to smaller and smaller details, it's something that we're going to go over in pretty much all aspects between actually the two classes. And this applies to designing a character, modeling, doing your art in Mudbox, to designing a game, scripting, all that kind of stuff. It all kind of follows this mentality, and that's work with big details and then go to small ones. So much like a classical painting, when they first start, they just lay down all the colors, lay down the big shapes before they start refining. You start refining things too early, and you could really lose scope of what you're doing, lose your ideas really quickly. So I don't recommend that. So anyways, if you go to brush presets here, I really like to work with like a really funky looking brush in the beginning. So I like to use something like this down here. If you go to your brush settings, make sure you have your Wacom on. Under size jitter, make sure pen pressure is on. That way you get a nice flow between what you're doing. I like to keep smoothing on. This particular one has dual brush and some transfer on, so when we paint, we get a little bit of a rough kind of marker look to it, which I quite enjoy. So I'm going to do that and get started. So select a pen or a brush setting that you really like. Make yourself a new layer. This is just going to be our idea layer. You'll see as we kind of get going. So we talked about the different aspects of character design. The first one we talked about is proportion, and the second one was silhouette. So we're going to kind of be going at these hand in hand together. I don't when I make my characters or really any sort of object, I don't like to start with anything too specific in mind. I know I want to make a character, and I really like to just kind of slowly kind of play around with some shapes and ideas. So I like to use just like a solid black marker like this, and just get some ideas going. And especially with proportions, you can get just some really quick ideas with just shapes and objects. So let's just start doing some stuff. And I'll show you some variations on how quickly you get a fairly interesting character with just some simple proportions. So I'll start with like a head and some shoulders, just really loose, right? Get some arms going in there, right? Some hands, get some bigger hands and a thumb here, right? Maybe like a smaller waist, and then a couple, kind of skinnier legs, right? And maybe something like that. I'm doing like a humanoid guy. So this guy's pretty standard, just like a dude. He's got a bit of a smaller head, nothing too interesting, but he's kind of a whatever kind of dude. So let's change around some of the proportions and see what we could do. What if we give him like a small head and like a big neck and like a huge chest, something like that. Go back down to the small waist again. Let's give him small upper arms, maybe like really huge forearms, something like that. and then like giant, big, bulky hands. Grab stuff and smash it, down to a little waist, and then maybe like really skinny, maybe short legs, maybe long legs. We'll see, something like that, and then like little feet, right? Just to kind of push his upper body even bigger. We could even do that. It's kind of like his chest there, and little tiny arms, big traps, and tiny little head. So we can do that. Let's get some other ideas going here. I'm just gonna make a new layer. So this is what I like to do. I just like to brainstorm really quickly, just on proportion alone. So what if our dude had like a giant head, right? Maybe like almost no neck, and again like a giant chest. Maybe also like a really small middle torso, right? And then like really tiny stumpy legs, right? Something like that. We just give him tiny little legs. We make them really short. He's also just giant, like gorilla arms, right? Where he's like almost walking on his arms, right? He's got big fists and a thumb, something like that, right? He's kind of interesting, I guess. I don't really like his big head. Maybe it's not big enough. Maybe I got to make like giant traps and like a huge, like a giant head. Right? He's kind of cartoony, but maybe kind of interesting. We'll see what we could do with him. He's all right. What else would I want? So we're making a humanoid kind of warrior character. Not all warriors got to be, gigantic. Maybe I want like a really sleek, like ninja kind of character. If I give him, long neck, little head, really long body, tiny little hips, really long legs, something like that. Okay, normal looking kind of feet. Give him some like little arms, maybe again some big forearms because he's still got to do some stuff, some cool fists and stuff like that. So there you go. So you're kind of getting some ideas of proportions and start playing around with things. Don't be afraid to just take your character. You can even duplicate a layer and just start mucking around. Maybe I wonder what he would look like with giant arms all throughout. Maybe that's okay. It's kind of cool if I give him like a giant head and like a tiny little body. I don't really like that, so maybe I'll just delete that and then start over with what I had before. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea of just proportions, right? Just don't be afraid to do things fast. Never spend too long on these details here. Go nice and quick and just get ideas out. Just much like designing a game, doing a prototype, just getting some stuff in, just getting some really quick proportions of what you want. Maybe I'll give him a big butt, booty, and stuff like that. So just work your way through. When you're finally happy with something, let's say I like this guy, like this little ninja dude I had here. So let's say I'm happy with that guy, and that's the thing I'm going to go with. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with some silhouette. So let me just, I'm just going to delete this big hulky guy here. Whoop. Move this guy to my center. So the next thing we're going to talk about is silhouette. So proportions, proportions are all about changing different sizes of body parts to kind of get a character kind of feel out of what he wants. So just by looking at the proportions of this guy, I kind of imagine his steps are going to be big for his animation. He's going to be a little bit more elegant because he's tall and skinny. If we went back to some of these dudes, this guy's going to be, he's kind of top heavy, so he might like wobble a lot. This this crazy looking dude, he's probably going to be pretty slow, like a golem, just kind of hulking around. So right off the bat, you get some really quick character ideas behind just from the proportions alone. So next thing we're going to talk about before getting deep into to the character side of things and details and all that is silhouette. Now, especially with video games, you're looking at your characters from really far away, sometimes just from behind, a lot of times mixed with a whole bunch of other enemies or people on your team and stuff like that. So it's really hard to just pull people apart, especially if they all look the same. And if you started off with just like going right into the details of this guy, you probably start thinking of like really cool things you might want to add to this guy, but not really think about the silhouette. So So let's say this guy was, our warrior, and if you just started going right into the details, you're like, oh, maybe I'll like add a little chain on him, right? Maybe some like cool stripes for his gauntlets, some cool eyes and mask or whatever. Maybe some cool patterns on here, some things on his pants, that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, that's cool. He's looking pretty neat. But in the end, his silhouette hasn't changed at all. And if other people have characters like this, they're all going to look the same from far away, no matter how much stuff you put right on them. So what we need to do is we need to give him some more character just with his silhouette alone. So I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to go back to my black paint here. And I'm going to, try and break up his silhouette a little bit. So let's think of some ideas of what we want to do with him. All right, so we're going to break up some silhouette from this guy just by painting right over him. So I'm going to select my brush. I'm going to make a brand new layer, and let's brainstorm some silhouette changes. And the cool thing is, once you have your proportions set up, you can make this character into a whole lot of different characters or fit different worlds just by changing up his silhouette and not really worrying about the details quite yet. So let's make him a warrior, since we're kind of dealing with warriors and stuff like that. So maybe if I wanted to make him like an ogre or some sort of Viking warrior, what would I do to show people that just on the silhouette? So let's give him, maybe like give him a big helmet, right? He'd be wearing a big helmet with some giant horns, right? Maybe we'll try again and do some little ones later on, see how that looks as well. All right, so we got some horns. What else would a warrior have? Maybe he'd have like a big arm shield just on the one side, right? Like a big brace there with some nails and things like that too. So yeah, let's add some shoulder pads, things like that. So now he's maybe starting to look a little bit like some sort of Viking type warrior. Maybe bigger helmet or something, right? Change up his head a little. What else? He might have some gauntlets, right? So let's give him some big bulky gauntlets, maybe with some spikes as well. Stuff like that. Maybe he'd have probably have some maybe more kind of loose pants on, something a little bit more something like that. Maybe he's got like tight boots on underneath, so it goes kind of thin again, right? He might have some big belts or something like that. That maybe there's like a strap going over there, so it would change his proportion or his silhouette a little bit there. And there we go. We have like a little bit of a soldier or a Viking. So let's change it up again. Let's try and think of some other ideas. So maybe instead of a big helmet, maybe he's got like a little helmet. And maybe instead of horns, maybe I just gave him like a bunch of spikes, like a mohawk of spikes. Same thing as before. Maybe we'll give him some. What else could he have? He could have some loose kind of clothing, right? Maybe he's got like a shirt on, but it's all ripped up around the shoulders. Maybe he's more like a heavy metal kind of guy now. He's more like a futuristic or Mad Max kind of looking dude. So maybe he's got some, torn up clothes. Maybe he's wearing some torn up shorts as well. Let's do something like that. He's got some shorts on. Tear that up, right? And you're breaking the silhouette, right? You're breaking the full outline of him. So we get that. Maybe he's got some big boots, some like army type of boots on. Right, so we give him some giant boots, right? They're kind of tall. And same thing. Maybe instead of like full gauntlets, maybe he's just got like wristbands with some spikes on them. Something like that. So that's another idea. Let's turn him. Let's say if we want to maybe make a pirate. So obviously pirate. Maybe we'd want like he's a captain. We'd have a big hat for him, something like that. Maybe he's got long hair. He's a pirate. A big beard, so he's got a big bushy kind of beard like that. He would have a sword sticking out his back. Right? Maybe he'd have like a big cloak or something, because he's a captain. So we just throw in a cloak like that too. Right? It kind of opens up in the center there. Right? Again, maybe he's got big old pirate boots, big on the top, and then they get smaller on the bottom. Stuff like that. He's got a parrot on the side. don't really like that because it kind of breaks up with the sword, or gets kind of symmetrical with the sword again. So maybe now he's a pirate or some sort of dude like that. Let's turn him into some other characters. What if we want him maybe being like a hiker or something like that? Let's say he's going to the woods, so we're going to give him a big backpack that he's going to be carrying. Right, it's going to have like the tent roll on the back. Right, it's going to be having a big backpack. Maybe he's got like a fishing line or a rod sticking out the back as well. Right, so we got a little bit of that. A little bit of thing like that. A little fishing line. He's probably going to have some cups hanging out the side, or some little bits dangling off the side, all that kind of stuff. He's probably going to have a t-shirt on, so we could give him a t-shirt, break up his arms a little bit. Maybe he's got like a camping hat or baseball hat on. Give him a bit of a hat. Like that. He's going fishing. Same thing. We give him some shorts as the other guy before too, but these are probably a little bit cleaner because he's modern and stuff like that. He's got some boots on as well, and things like that. So maybe he'll have like a little bit of a watch. It's not a big silhouette breakup. It could still happen. So that's kind of the quick idea of silhouettes. I just want you to start thinking about different ways to break up your character. When you look at your character in a video game, he might only be that big on screen, or that big. And if your character is just like a little skinny dude, that's okay. But if you just throw some colors and things on there, he might not stand out as much as turning him into different characters with just some simple silhouettes, right? So don't even worry about what those details are exactly going to look at. We're going to go over those next, and then once we actually get to the modeling side of things, and in Mudbox, we'll really define those things. So you don't have to get too crazy on your concepts. We're not defining all of our ideas here. We got way more work to do on this character past the concept stage. You don't want to get caught up over defining every single thing in your concept. Much like we talked about in rapid game development, you don't want to be, you don't want to design your whole game on paper and then be stuck making those things. So you want to kind of push a little further and just get your base ideas out. So our next talk, we're going to talk about details and color.